so this leads into really the new world that we're living in. And I think that by the end of, I really think that we're in this transitionary period. I was saying this to you before the podcast started, but like we're in this transitionary period of like, there's the old way of doing things and then the new way of doing things,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like before we had the standard of like, okay, buy a house, get a bunch of kids, like get a car, go to school, like relive it out. You know what I mean? Which was actually played out through insurance companies. If you look into that history of why we have that general narrative, like the American dream, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I really think that people are having more choice now, and our choices are also like skewed and limited in different ways. That I don't think that way that we are living is how we're going to live in the next 10 to 20, 30 years, right? Like with prices, with like opportunities and choices, and I feel like I see a lot of these memes and I'm like, oh, that's me now, which is like the millennial dog parent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
see that's a new lifestyle
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
are being carved
Yeah.
out, right? And like it really hit me yesterday when I was looking at the wedding photos that I have, and like Athena's in all those photos. And I'm like, oh, it didn't click until I was like, oh yeah, we are literally that new type of person.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that that's going to be more and more people because I'm seeing more and more memes of that. Like
Mm-hmm.
the people are living differently. I don't know your thoughts. Like, what do you think? You
No.
think do you see it too, or
Yeah. Of
not
course.
really?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No. Yeah. That is the general thing that's happening in the Western world. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
And like even the amalgamation of different cultures. Like people are getting anime, people are getting Asian food, rap music. Like it's all becoming a style of when we were okay, how do I put this? When we were coming up, when we were getting older, we had like subcultures. Like, oh, those are the hip hop heads. Those are the like Asian artsy
Mm-hmm.
kids.
Mm-hmm.
Those are what I'm trying to say, right? Like we had like cliques. But I feel like that everything's being mashed into one now. Like it's like you can be this, but also this. You can be that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And we're so inclusive in that way that it's like find out who you are.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? Like I can even just tell you my pronouns are like this and that.
Right.
And you have to accept it. Like we're so
Mm-hmm.
we're like a teenage person finding out their identity, and I feel like that's where we are societally now.
Right.
Because we have so many new toys and options. Like what's the digital world going to do to our psyche 10, 20, 30 years
Yeah.
from now? You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. I think it is the digital world that has changed this.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Right.
totally. And globalization, because now we can like fly.
Yeah, but that's what the digital world did in a way, right? They were
That's true, like
flying
radar,
before, right?
yeah,
But
totally.
it's the vastness of information that we can get today that we couldn't get before.
True. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Like anime, you had to like it was so hard.
It was so hard to
and now you
find.
just go to
Yeah.
the website, right? Like, yeah, that's true. I guess the impetus was the internet, but yeah, and the other part too is like
Like there's a lot of
yeah.
things that have changed in the culture, right? Like even with TV and stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody would go and watch the show at the same time. That's not happening anymore. We can watch whatever we want to watch.
Totally.
So that affects.
Exactly.
That's why people can have their own likes and dislikes. So people can explore those things that they couldn't do before.
Yeah, totally. Okay. And this is. Did I send you that meme where it's like 30, 20 years ago, and it was like George Costanza, and 30 now,
No,
and it's like
I didn't see that one.
Okay, so
I don't remember. Yeah.
So they had like you remember George Costanza from Seinfeld?
Yeah.
Glasses,
Mm-hmm,
you know what I mean? So when you were like 29, 30 back then, that's what you thought of a person looking like.
Okay.
But then you go 29, 30 now, it's like they're more youthful. They have more choices.
Right.
And I was like looking around my like man cave area, and I was like, oh, this is what it's like to not have kids. Okay, I get it. Like
Yeah.
you could just do whatever, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I'm like, but those are the choices most people are, not most people, but like more and more people are starting to make
Hmm.
when they become like dog parents. And then you're like what? Like, all right, let's say you can engineer a kid. You don't even have to like give birth to a kid, because the hardest part is like as you get older, like the birth rate becomes harder, right,
Hmm.
to like have a child. But like, let's say you can like clone a child. So you almost get the best of both worlds in the future. You just don't even know. So you can be like 45 and you're like, I got my life together now. And then you have a kid.
Yeah.
But like, think about when we were younger, when I said like that meme about George Costanza, when you're like 29, like by my age right now, my parents had two kids and they were going to school and they're
Hmm.
almost about to buy a house.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm not even close to that zone, bro. Like we're totally different people.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Hmm.
And then you see those other old memes where it's like men back then were like warriors and stuff. And then now you look at the men now, you're like totally different from what it once was.
Sure. Right.
Right. And it's like this rapid innovation is totally making a different type of human being.
Hmm.
I really believe this. Like, do you see it too? Or,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
right? It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's really changing us
Right.
from what
And
we
you're like, how do you
are
want to live your
normally
life?
used to. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we see the perils of, I don't know how to explain this, but it's like, because, oh no, no, here's the best line. The fool learns from their own mistakes. The smarter person learns from the mistakes of others.
Hmm.
So because of this access of information, we can actually see certain examples of what a lifestyle would be like if it played out. And we're like, oh, I don't want to go there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So like, so we are afforded more opportunities of understanding how to build the life that we want. And that is going to look chaotic to the ones who are trying to control the masses.
Hmm.
Does that make sense? Because like before, it was like, okay, get a kid, get a mortgage, get a car. All those things are so expensive. You're locked in. You have to have a 9 to 5 job. Even if you hate it, you have to have it. Right.
Right.
But now it's like, let's say you're like, you don't have those things. You can choose a path that you want that you're like, oh, that's more fulfilling than that.
Right.
But then it's like, how do I control you? And the only way to control you is raise the prices so that you're locked in to having to be in the system because everything's so expensive.
Hmm.
Do you know what I'm trying to say? It's like,
Yeah. I get what you're
I
trying to
feel
say.
like there's a control mechanism. And the old control mechanism was like the family. The nuclear family was a control mechanism
Hmm.
because you're locked in. Like once you have it, it's like, I can't escape this. But now it's like prices is the new control mechanism. Because you can make a bunch of money, but if it also costs more money, then you're still locked into not being able to like do
Yeah.
any.
I
You know what I'm
understand. I
saying? It's like,
understand what you're saying. Yeah.
and then that
Mhm.
inadvertently is forcing us not to have more children because you're like, how do you even how do you even pay for it? How do you take care of it? How do you give it everything it needs?
Yeah.
You know, like we're inadvertently forcing ourselves down a path of like a new type of human, you know,
Sure. Yeah.
who doesn't necessarily want the things that other people wanted,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it also seems weird to the people because it's transitionary period. It's kind of weird to some people, but understandable to others.
Hmm.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Are you trying to say like someone is controlling it, or is just these are the things that are happening within our?
No, no, it's inadvertent control. It's like you don't like I have the choice to all right, so the best example, the best example is like having babysat, and I was
Hmm.
like so obsessed with like protecting this thing. Like all of my attention was like take care of the person I'm babysitting. And I was like, I couldn't even imagine a parent like being in there. Like, it's not my kid, but it exhausted me because
Mhm.
I was like, I need to really focus and make sure all your needs are met.
Right.
But then if you have a parent, it's like, but that's not going away. Like, I can at least go home and then be like, oh, I'm chilling.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But then it's like the grind never stops for them.
Mhm.
So like that's what I mean about like you're locked in.
Mhm.
You can't not, and then you become like a deadbeat dad if you
Sure. Yeah.
do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like there's so many negative connotations, but like it's inadvertent lock-in. Like we're not trying to control you, but there are mechanisms of control. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's not like before
Mhm.
where, you know, it took a village to raise a child, right? So if I'm like busy, I can just pass you off and do this, and then like, oh, they know more about mathematics, go to them. You know what I'm saying? But like now it's more the onus is on you, and that makes you even more locked in.
Mhm.
Do you know what I'm trying to say?
More like a individualistic feel to it versus a community feel to it.
For the child
Yeah.
bearing, yeah,
Yeah.
child raising,
Yeah.
yeah. And because of that, because your resources are limited, you're more locked in.
Mhm.
Like, I have to do this job. I have to do that thing. I have to watch you. Like, when are you going to read a book? When are you going to,
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
all of your attention is on that
Mhm.
thing. That's just one example. There's so many other things like that you could be locked in for. But because you were asking me, do you think is it controlled by something? I don't think it's controlled. I think it's just like the choices pushed us into these
Sure. Right.
control
Okay. Yeah.
systems.
That makes sense. Yeah.
But you see it too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Of
Like, does that make
course.
sense?
Yeah.
But I think we're breaking away from that, is what I'm also saying. But being controlled in other ways. But like that was the old paradigm of
Yeah.
how you
Now
live your
we.
life.
It's more
The new
like
paradigm.
having the. Yeah. It's the having the information to act on that. So like knowing
Yeah.
about these things or like uh it's what social media has really done, right? Seeing other people's
Yeah, yeah,
lives.
no,
It's really
yeah,
what has
yeah, yeah,
changed it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And you're like, ooh, that seems like a tough call. Like before, we didn't have the information at our hands, so we were just kind of like doing what we thought was important.
Mhm.
But then now that you could see the errors of other people, you're like, oh, maybe I don't want to do that.
Mhm.
Like for example, not knocking anybody with like a crap degree, but like when you get like a really crap degree,
Mhm.
you're like, if only I'd seen somebody walk down that path and tell me that that was a crap degree. If I get like a master's in like drawing lines, it's like, what are you gonna do with that, bro?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
like nobody told us that. But if you watched a bunch of like reels of like, don't get this degree, like what am I gonna do with it? You'd be like, oh, I'm learning from the mistakes of others.
Right.
But I feel like with the information, it's like we're becoming wiser, I guess, as a species.
Mhm.
But the more wise we are, the different choices we make, which creates a different lifestyle.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yes. Of course.
So what's it gonna look like in
Well, yeah,
freaking
a different lifestyle.
10,
Yeah,
20, 30 years?
I think it makes more like it's now your choice of what you want to do. Yeah,
Yeah. And you have better information to make that choice.
exactly. Yeah.
So what's it gonna look like in 10, 20, 30 years? Right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We shall see.
It's gonna be wild, right? Yeah.